Welcome. In this video, we shall be discussing Spring Boot interview questions. Let's see a list of questions which we shall be covering in this part. Spring Boot application annotation, what these annotations mean, what is convention over configuration, what is Lombok package, what is a command line runner, and what are Maven and Gradle. With these topics, let's get started. At Spring Boot annotation is an important annotation which is in the main method which we place here. It is responsible for automatic configuration and automatic scanning of all the components and the injection which is there for the IOC. All those things are the responsibility of the at Spring Boot application. So these are the three things which it is doing: the add configuration, the automatic configuration which is done, and the component scanning which is done. So in essence, it will scan through all the classes, it will find out what all beans are there, it would also read all the annotations which are there, and which it would populate the objects in the IOC container and also inject those specific objects within the client code which is there. So it's a very important annotation which should be on the application, the initial application class, it should be there. So when we read about Spring Boot, we see that it prefers convention over configuration. What convention over configuration does is that if you follow a specific convention of writing your software, there is no need of writing the configuration for it. So if you follow the convention, the configuration is not required. If you want to change the convention, then you have to put the configuration in place. So let's see the formal definition. Convention over configuration, also known as coding by convention, is a software design paradigm used by software frameworks that attempts to decrease the number of decisions a developer has to make. Okay, so you don't have to say that, okay, I want to have this bean injected as a singleton. You don't have to, it is by default there. You don't have to say that this is the package over which I want to scan for the IOC. If you have subscribed the way the package names are written, the scanning shall automatically be done. You don't have to say, in case of your repository, your entity definition, what should be the name of the table on the database. If you follow the name of the name of the entity is same as the name of the table. You don't have to write the name of the table. So what has happened now is that you followed a specific convention, so you don't have to have lot of configuration. Let's see this example. For example, if there is a sales class in the model, the corresponding table in the database is called sales by default. It is only if one deviates from this convention, then one needs to write code regarding these names. Okay, so what are the examples of this convention over configuration in Spring Boot? So project structure is one. Spring Boot follows a convention for a project structure. So if you manage that project structure which is given by Spring Boot automatically scans all the components that are below that package for configuration. So let's say your main class is in com.example.myapp. Now let's say you place some of your beans in com.myexample.xyz. Then those would not be scanned automatically. Then you have to put a configuration for it. But if the package is same, if it is like com.example.myapp.mybean, then it will be automatically scanned. So project structure, if you have given, you don't have to give a configuration for scanning and injecting those objects. So class path scanning, the same concept being elaborated here, that if things are in the class path, they would automatically be scanned. Automatic web server configuration. So the configuration of the web server is automatically there. You don't have to define it, you don't have to configure it. It is by default there, by convention there. If you want to change it, you can change it, but by default, by convention, the configuration of the web server is already present. Database configuration, so the data source, the transaction management, all these things are basically present by conventions. If you want to change them, then only you have to write your own configurations. So project Lombok is a popular Java library that helps developers reduce boilerplate code by providing a set of annotations to automatically generate common structures during compilation. So earlier, when we were not using Lombok, what we have to do is we have to define our own getter setters for all the properties which are there. If in case we have to check for equality, we have to define the equals ourselves. If you have to check for the hash code, you have to define the hash code functionality yourself. But if you have the Lombok in your project, if you put a add data, it will do whole magic. The complete magic shall be automatically done for you. So add data is a convenient Lombok annotation that automatically generates common methods such as toString, hash code, equals, getter, setters for all the fields in the class. So now with the help of Lombok, what you have to do is you have to define only the fields. You have to define only the attributes, and all the getters, setters and the different properties would be automatically created for you. So what it does, it will help you to reduce your boilerplate, and it will also help you avoid making mistakes while creating all these boilerplate codes. So if you have to do any specific work just before the Spring Boot application starts, then you can use the command line runner. Okay, this interface you can implement. So command line runner interface in a Spring Boot application is part of Spring Boot lifecycle and provides a way to run specific code after this application context has been loaded and just before the application starts running. So just before the application starts running, if you have to do something, for example, you have to put a log, you have to do tasks like database initialization, data loading, or any specific task which needs to be performed before the service actually starts running. That kind of functionality you can do inside the command line runner. What is Maven and Gradle? Maven and Gradle are popular build automation tools. So what is a build automation tool? So the compilation of the project, how the dependency management is done. For example, in Maven you have a POM file where you can do what all dependencies are there, what versioning of those dependencies are there. They are done with the help of build automation tool. Packaging, whether it should be a jar file or a var file or what kind of file it should be packaged as. The documentation generation, the versioning of your application which you are creating, and the deployment which has to be created for this, like if in case you have to deploy it into Artifactory or to the Nexus, how that deployment can be done. So all these different functionalities can be done using a build automation tool, and the popular build automation tools are Gradle and Maven, which are used in case of Java Spring Boot. Let's read the formal definition. Build automation refers to the process of automating the tasks involved in compiling source code into executable software and managing other aspects of software development lifecycle. The primary goal of build automation is to streamline and simplify the process of building, testing, deploying software, and reducing manual efforts and minimizing the risk of errors. Build automation tool automates repetitive tasks, providing consistency and reproducibility of the build process. So if you have a build automation software, the way it is built first time, it will build the same way the second time, it will build the same way the third time. So there is a consistency in the automated repetitive tasks of build process. And this was the last topic. Thank you very much.